Hi, my name is Brianna Maroney, and my group is looking to understand vaccine confidence among Cal Poly students. If our ultimate goal is to increase the health and safety of Cal Poly's community, we wanted to utilize this study to understand what it would take to get there. The more students that are vaccinated, the sooner we will reach herd immunity and the safer our community will be. That is why our discovery-oriented question is, why are some Cal Poly students reluctant to get vaccinated? If we can understand some of the concerns that these students are having, Cal Poly Health Center can create informational graphics and marketing strategies to address these concerns. Our research problems correlating with this question are to discover the concerns surrounding the Pfizer vaccine specifically, determine where these concerns are sourced from, and to investigate ways to promote confidence surrounding the vaccine and RNA technology. Based on our ultimate goal and our strategy-oriented question must be, how can Cal Poly effectively increase the number of students that are getting vaccinated? The research problems correlating with this question are to research other institutions' marketing strategies as they work to promote vaccine confidence. We also hope to educate students about the FDA approval process, mRNA technology, and the Pfizer vaccine. And finally, to develop effective marketing strategies, we must examine Cal Poly Health Center's current marketing strategies and their effectiveness. Now, who exactly are we looking at? Well, our group decided to focus on interviewing and surveying Cal Poly students that were currently residing in San Luis Obispo. These students come from a variety of majors, political affiliations, and ethnicities, which was ideal for our study because we wanted to see if there was a correlation between vaccine confidence and various demographic and psychographic traits. We feel that this is a very effective target population because students living in San Luis Obispo are interacting with other Cal Poly students and therefore affecting the health and herd immunity of Cal Poly as a whole.
My name is Ellie Auerbach, and I will be going over some of the qualitative research that we found as a group. So our group decided to conduct in-depth interviews as we believed that the COVID-19 vaccine is definitely a personal decision to obtain, so we wanted our participants to feel comfortable and, confident being able to share their own opinions without feeling judgmental or any bias with a bigger group setting, such as, a focus group, which can definitely lead to some bias. So we were able to interview 8 different participants, and it was a mix of girls and guys, all various majors within Cal Poly, and the average age was about 20 years old. So our findings were super unique because we learned that majority of the students were really confident in the COVID vaccine, and instead of, feeling hesitant about long-term effects and things like that, it was actually more of short-term, how I feel 10 minutes, 2 hours, 1 day after the vaccine versus 5 years from now, 10 years from now, which was definitely an interesting thing to learn. And we also learned that in terms of confidence with the vaccine, we learned that the majority of our participants were actually very comfortable getting the vaccine, and if they hadn't already obtained it, then they were planning on getting it very soon. Another thing that we learned is that majority of the students, again, were very excited and eager to return to normal. So, getting back to Cal Poly's classes in person were definitely something that they felt comfortable with and excited to do so.
For our sampling procedure, we decided to use convenient sampling method for this study since COVID-19 regulations narrowed our sampling methods. We were able to contact friends from Cal Poly and pass along this survey. From there on, we relied on the word of mouth to hand our survey out. We also decided to make announcements in our classes and, with the professor's permission, send out a link to our survey so that students can take it. This was an effective method, but we were still not reaching our target, which was 30 to 50 participants. Therefore, we decided to post the link to our survey on Facebook groups, which are full of current Cal Poly students. This seemed to work because we reached our target of 50 participants. Our survey consisted of 19 questions. Most of the questions were given in multiple choice form, but some of the questions were free response questions and ranking questions. We try to make our survey as user-friendly as possible by providing instructions to each participant and thanking them for taking the time out of their day to help us with our study. This survey was also concise and did not take participants more than 5 minutes to take. Potential errors with our survey data include unengaged participants who are just trying to answer the survey and are not actually conscious about what they're responding to. This can be avoided by attention checks, but is not entirely unavoidable. If the participant lacks interest for the subject and does not care for the data being gathered by his response, there is nothing we can do about it. Another error could be potential bias in our participants' response. This is unavoidable, but is accounted for in our analysis.
Each person in our group sent the survey to about 10 people to get 50 people total. We also posted the survey in one sorority Facebook group containing 237 members. Since we received 50 responses to the survey, we estimate our response rate to be about 0.17. We believe that the fact that 3 out of 5 of our group members are female and that we posted the survey in a sorority Facebook group might explain why the majority of our respondents were female. Out of 50 survey respondents, 69% reported that they received the vaccine for COVID-19. 22% reported that they were not vaccinated, and 8% reported to be partially vaccinated. This means that although a majority of our sample are vaccinated, a little less than a fourth of our respondents are not yet vaccinated. We also asked how likely students are to get the COVID vaccine if Cal Poly offered it freely on campus. As illustrated by this graph, 70% responded that if the vaccine was available on campus, they would be very likely to get it. This data further supports Cal Poly's initiative to make the vaccine available for students to get on campus. We were curious to learn whether students stay up to date with Cal Poly Health Services newsletter and informational campaigns in order to better understand how effective Cal Poly Health Services is at disseminating information to students about vaccine safety and availability. Here we see that only a small number of respondents, 12%, reported that they do stay up to date with Cal Poly Health Services. Majority, 58%, only sometimes do, and 30% reported that they do not stay up to date with Cal Poly Health Services. This data might be useful for Cal Poly Health Services to incorporate into a new strategy aimed at engaging with more students on campus in order to disseminate information to a larger percentage of the student population. As we'll go into further detail in the next slide, we were curious to understand how a vaccine requirement for Cal Poly students attending in-person classes would affect students' likelihood to get the vaccine. We know from other questions and our qualitative research that students are eager to return to normalcy and attend classes in person on campus. We asked this question in order to quantify how students' likelihood to get vaccinated would change and determine whether or not our first hypothesis was supported by our survey data.
Data from the survey supports hypothesis 1, which states that the CSU vaccination mandate will increase students' likelihood of receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. Question 1 of the survey asks if the vaccine requirement for all Cal Poly students attending in-person classes increases the likelihood that students will receive a COVID-19 vaccine. Out of the 50 responses that the survey received, 86% of them, or 41 people, answered yes. This indicates that the vaccine mandate has a very tangible increase on students' likelihood of getting the vaccine. This is expected as Cal Poly is greatly reducing the number of classes offered online, and so it will likely become necessary for most students to visit the campus in some capacity. Hypothesis 2, which states that easy access to vaccinations will increase students' likelihood of getting the vaccine, and 3, which states that the availability of the Pfizer vaccine will increase students' motivation to get vaccinated, are both supported as well. Question 4 asks students how likely they are to get the COVID vaccine if Cal Poly offered free on-campus vaccine opportunities. Of the 50 responses, 35 students, or 70% of respondents, chose the option very likely. By allocating numerical values between 5 and 1, with 1 representing very unlikely and 5 very likely, it is possible to take a closer look at the data. The mean value for the responses was 4.32, with a standard deviation of 1.19. This further supports the hypothesis, showing the mean response to fall between very and somewhat likely, with the relatively low standard deviation once again supporting the hypothesis by showing little variation in the data. Lastly, hypothesis 4, which states that information from the Cal Poly Health Center communicating the vaccine's safety and effectiveness will increase students' likelihood of receiving it, is not supported by our data. Question 11 asks whether students stay up to date with the news and information from the Cal Poly Health Center, and out of 50 respondents, only 6 said that they stay up to date. Therefore, we are not able to draw conclusions supporting or denying our hypothesis.